Okay, today we'll be presenting on water, energy, food nexus with a lens on global agriculture. Our prompt was, how is water, food, and energy nexus different in major agricultural production regions in the world? What are trade-offs and how can a nexus approach improve this relationship in the future? So water, food, and energy all work together to allow society, the economy, and the environment to operate. With changing population sizes, climate change, urbanization, and shifts with global demands, this necessitates that our society innovates sustainable solutions that maximize efficiency in agriculture realms by limiting water consumption and energy usage. So we will be focusing on three regions. Firstly, Egypt, which is known for their green production, such as rice, wheat, and also cotton. They are characterized as a hot and dry region with maximum temperatures of 48 degrees Celsius and dry, cool winters with an annual precipitation of 108 millimeters per year.
We'll also be talking about the Mediterranean and specifically Greece. Greece and the Mediterranean region is characterized by a Mediterranean climate, which is dry summers and mildly wet winters. Their agricultural industry is primarily dominated by olive trees. These trees are a robust plant due to the variety of climates and ecosystems present in the Mediterranean regions. They are adapted to these multiple climate conditions, but do experience some stress during extreme climate events and are adapted well to their current conditions, but with changes, they do experience some stress.
We will also be focusing on Mexico, specifically the central and western regions of Mexico, as they are like the primary producers of avocados. Mexico also has different types of crops like coffee, cacao, corn, and many other things.
As of 2022, the Egyptian government collaborated with different agencies and stakeholders to combat climate change from the lens of the Nexus water, food, and energy approach. With rising temperatures, water scarcity, growing population, and strained energy grid, these all act as stressors to the Nexus relationship. This necessitates that an action plan and implementation of a greener Egypt is achieved. This program of 2022 sought to do just that. The main mission was to transition to more sustainable practices in the water, food, and energy sectors. The nine of the 26 climate projects were improving the Nexus relationships. Seen to the right are a variety of projects split between the energy, food, and water sectors with different partners, beneficiaries, and a mix of mitigation and adaptation categories. Some of these include renewable energy sources such as solar panels, desalination processes, resilient agriculture, such as improving irrigation and crop production in the Nile River region. The Nile historically has been drained for residential and agricultural purposes. The demand for water soon outweighed the amount that the Nile could support, and this resulted in the need for tapping into groundwater wells. Over the past 5 years, there's been 5,000 wells drilled in Egypt, and this has allowed agriculture to sprawl into more arid, remote desert locations, which was once confined to the Nile region. Note that groundwater is not renewable, and it takes anywhere from 50,000 to 5,000 years to develop these aquifers, and they're being withdrawn at a much faster rate than being replenished. And while this expansion of agriculture is good from the food perspective, it is negatively impacting the water resources side of things. On the upper right, you can see a spatial map of the groundwater availability in the Middle East. In the red box is Egypt, and you can see there's a variety of red, orange, yellow, and green pixels. Eventually, if Egypt continues to withdraw groundwater at the rate that they are, they might begin to look like Saudi Arabia on the side with a more prominent orange and red coloration. Note that 80% of Nile water actually goes towards agricultural use, as seen in the image below. And this is a large number, and there's a lot of inefficiencies when it comes to the irrigation practices. In fact, over 40% of water is lost in this irrigation process, and this needs to be improved upon, especially with changing climate and the water scarcity crisis that they're undergoing. Water regulations are now in place for certain crops that are high demanding with water, This includes rice and sugarcane, which used to be produced in the region and is no longer permitted, which has put strain on certain farms, families, and the economy. So in the future, we have a variety of different technologies that can address these water shortage issues, energy and irrigation and food supplies. Desalination is a high energy practice that can convert salt water to drinkable water or able to be applied to agriculture. And increasing the heat of the water effectively increases the efficiency and energy requirements. So engineers have harnessed the nuclear energy heat waste to increase the efficiency of RO, reverse osmosis, and distillation techniques. This can be seen on the right, on the top right image. And additionally, um, they have looked into solar energy, which is consistent throughout the year. And below on the bottom image, you can see that there's slight variation throughout the year, but is relatively consistent, making this a promising renewable energy source, while wind is less likely to be incorporated into Egypt's energy sources due to the median airspeed, wind speed being 2 meters per second, which would effectively produce no energy. Next up, they have been looking at more sophisticated irrigation systems. Right now, 60% of Egypt's agriculture is irrigated with the flooding technique, which wastes lots of water. So improving upon the irrigation through drip would be an effective way to harness more water and produce more crops. Drip irrigation actually is 87% efficient as opposed to the 61% currently used right now.
In Central America, Mexico's avocado belt has produced 2 million tons of avocados in 2020 alone. Within the central avocado belt, Michoacan, the state in the Central East region, has been commercially producing avocados since 1950. The state alone has produced more than 70% of exported avocados. The lands are also deep rooted with indigenous practices in agriculture, which were primarily for maize rather than avocados, but due to the increased demand, they have started to decrease their yields. Due to avocados' increased demand, there has been a large decrease in water resources. In the picture to the top right, you can see one of the natural aquifers or watersheds called Lake Pátzcuaro. It is above sea level and has an annual mean rainfall of 987 millimeters of water, which has been greatly reduced for many years. In the lower pictures on the right, you can see that 2.25 kilometers cubed per year of water has been used for agricultural purposes for avocados compared to the other countries in Central America who also produce avocados. And the farthest picture on the right, bottom right, compares the production of avocados since 1960 to 2020. And there's like a great increase in avocado demand from Mexico. So the average annual water usage in one municipality in Michoacan is 3,357,782 meters cubed, which is 149% of the allowed water usage for agricultural avocado crops in the area, which it has been increasing the rise of deforestation, decreasing them up to 8,000 hectares of temperate forest in the Michoacan region, causing the decrease in soil health and groundwater resources for local communities. Many of the local communities in the area are actually below the poverty line, which really affects their quality of life. Oh, and also due to the increased production of avocados, pesticides have been used without much regulation, and the current regulations around avocado production are very relaxed and don't have any limits on how much forests can be burned down and removed to replace them with monocultural avocado farms. So some sustainability goals include better supply chain management in order to decrease the amount of local communities' dependency on increasing the size of their groundwater wells, and increasing the diverse orchard farming, um, and spacing out the avocados. And as a result of avocado production, like they are also used for biofuel, like the avocado waste for pressing avocados into oil is used for biofuel and biodiesel.
Final region we decided to investigate was the Mediterranean, and specifically Greece and their olive agricultural system. The cultivation of olive trees is both culturally significant and is a major economic industry in the Mediterranean region. It is particularly important to Greece, which is the third largest producer of olive oil in the world, producing between 300,000 and 400,000 tons of olive oil per year. This is exemplified by the figure on the right of the Greek island of Crete, which shows that olives dominate 65% of the area where agriculture is possible on this island. An important fact concerning this production of olive oil is that the production of 1 liter of olive oil consumes approximately 1,400 gallons of water, and currently 85% of all water use in Greece is used for irrigation purposes, which highlights that water is an extremely vital resource in this region. As previously discussed, the Mediterranean is a dry summer and mildly wet winter climate, and with olive trees being natural to the region, they are adapted to the various soil types, altitudes, and climate conditions present in the region, but extreme climate change events and conditions can negatively impact olive tree growth, development, and crop yield. Initial studies that took place in 2001 of the technical efficiency of Greek olive farms found that farming methods could achieve the same level of output with less input resources. It wasn't until recently that water energy nexus principles had been analyzed in this region, and studies which investigated the modern efficiency found that farmers are concerned about climate change and are open to adopting WEF conscious practices. When studying olive farming from the system perspective illustrated by the figure on the right, researchers found that current practices could be improved to increase water efficiency, economic water efficiency, and renewable energy use, and to decrease pesticide, herbicide, and insecticide pollution, CO2 emissions, and soil stress. One of these studies, conducted in 2022 by Kyrgialis et al., studied the implementation of good agricultural practices, which included no weed mowing during winter to reduce runoff, weeding during the summer to reduce water losses by transpiration, introduction of cover crops and legume mixes to reduce runoff, pruning during winter and summer to reduce water losses, fertigation to increase fertilization efficiency, and the construction of runoff-reducing barriers and some other methods. As shown by the figures on the right, when doing this, researchers found that implementing these techniques could improve olive yield, water productivity, and economic water productivity, while decreasing surface runoff and erosion. To summarize, the Greek and the Mediterranean agricultural practice, though not completely lacking WEF techniques and practices, Greece and the Mediterranean region has room for growth, and these improvements, which would align with WEF principles, could benefit olive farming's ecosystem impacts, water usage, and economic gain.
So, as you've seen, these three regions share some similarities, but also differences. Across the board, all of the agriculture is a high water demand, or requires high water demand. This includes anywhere from the manufacturing of the olive oil to the actual irrigation of wheat products and avocados in Mexico. Additionally, all these regions are quite warm and arid, while noting that Mexico does have a higher rainfall than areas like Egypt. To note that in the Middle East and Egypt, they're looking into very unique and creative energy efficient technologies that harness byproducts of other systems to increase the efficiency of water desalination, which is a high energy cost technology.
In summary, we found that water, energy, food nexus agricultural practices vary between the regions we focused on and the other recent regions which we researched. Especially in our regions, sustainable agricultural principles are present, and the general farming population are interested in adopting more sustainable practices, but there are currently some room for improvements. Throughout all of our research, it is clear that water, energy, food nexus is a growing area of global research, and many regions are actively improving their research efforts with continued climatic changes and the concerns for negative impacts on regional agriculture. And with that, just want to thank you for listening, and here are our references.